Yeah, candidate join. Yes, Ritik.
Hi, Ritvik, carry on.
Okay, so where
Yes, Ritik.
okay, so where I was, my voice is going.
Yes,
My voice is going.
see, getting echo. I think you have joined from two devices. Yes.
Okay, so in total
Yes,
there.
Ritik.
Okay, so
Okay.
in total there were 7,000 applications. Wait, okay. So I by ADO onboarding. We mean that that was an automation process, and we had to accomplish this by using some TNT settings. So there were various steps for that. So after that, in the Azure portal, we used to get those two environment. One was DevOps non-prod, and one was DevOps prod. And after that, the testing team used to give us the naming convention, and according to that, we used to create the code in the Terraform and create the resources as per the target architecture and push those changes to Microsoft Azure. So other project was BSSC project, in which the developers used to keep their code in the Nexus repository, and in the morning time we used to pull those the codes from there, and according to the Word document, we had a team with the QE team, and they requested some certain changes, and we had to do the changes in the Bitbucket and push those changes using the Jenkins pipeline, which was triggered manually. And whatever the error came, our task was to fix that issue.
So, Ritik, what are your roles and responsibilities? What you will do daily actually,
In
and
B,
what kind of
that's what I am telling now. In application migration program, my task was to migrate the
migration program in the sense?
migration.
What are the tools and technologies? Yeah.
Tools used were MS Visio for creation of target architecture, which was done by the business analysts. And as a platform engineer, my task was to create the resources for the production environment uh, based on the target architecture. By target architecture, we mean the diagram which was prepared by the application team. And in the
Okay.
BSC project, my task was to change the code in the Bitbucket and trigger that code using Jenkins, which was made by the developers.
Okay. Have you integrated anything with Jenkins?
By integration means,
Integration in the sense you are saying that Nexus repository we are using.
so for that we have to, I mean, th- supply the URL of the that particular link to the Jenkins. So there is a dedicated option that, and in other that we can use Bitbucket or that GitHub link, and from there we can pull the integrate the Jenkins to that. And other than that, there are other tools as well to integrate Jenkins. From there, it will pull the code and run the pipeline.
You are using Jenkins, right?
Mhm.
Then what kind of pipelines you are using?
So in BSSC project, I was using manual pipeline, but pipelines mean there are two types of pipeline. One is the sequential and one is the parallel. So sequential pipeline is the pipeline in which there are dependencies. So if I am creating 3 to 4 cases and both of them are in testing, one is integration testing, one is Selenium testing, and one is other. So for that, sequential is used, and if those are independent, say one is for the developer and one is for the, I mean, testing, and if suppose that there are certain other environment, like in my BSSC
You,
project,
I mean, what are the stages you are using in the pipeline?
there are those requirements. Those are the requirement based on the project. So one can be
Mhm.
plan, test, and build, and so these kind of stages we can have. One is
Actually,
that the
you are
plan, test,
Mhm.
deploy, and then the integration testing. So based on the
where
environment
you are deploying,
means.
and it means you are saying test plan, and these are the stages, right?
Uh-huh.
And the stage will be first is like check out our code, and the
Hmm.
second stage will be you are saying build,
Hmm.
which code you are using and which build tool you are using.
So build tool can be anything, like it can be Maven or Ant or
No,
Gradle.
no, no, I'm asking. Okay, you are in your project, I'm asking.
So
Okay.
in my project, I used to trigger manually. There was no automation, and there was only a single build. One was in the morning and one was in the afternoon. So Jenkins pipeline there was manual, and I was only responsible for the non-prod environment.
Okay, you are responsible for non-prod environment.
Yes, MS360 environment was assigned to me, non-prod, because that was a very big project. There were 1000 VMs were running, so a lot of people were involved here. So a single person, it was not possible for a single person to look after the everything. And if anything goes wrong, the project could erode.
Okay,
So
you will be responsible for deploying into the non-stage, right?
yes, non-prod MS360 environment, QE
No, yeah, QA, yeah, it's okay. Where you are deploying, in which server?
on Azure only.
Azure
That
cloud.
project was
Okay,
deployed in Azure end to end.
okay, end to end. Okay.
And that VSSE project, actually it was an
Which
MDoc
application server you are using? Which
application.
one you are using? Like you are using Tomcat, IIS. If it is Windows, like if it is this IIS
So
or
that depends.
what?
So that depends on the project requirement. So I was working for one of our application. The application was a VPNs. For that, we had used IIS, and we had installed a mail server and the PHP code for that. And for other, there were some Linux environments. So I had created the VM and installed the Nginx for that. Other projects we had installed Tomcat. So what happened was, after the creation of that VM, so we used to hand over those VMs to the respective administrators, be it Windows administrators or system admins or Linux administrator, and they used to continue for the configuration of the server, because there was a very wide variety of servers, so the administrators were responsible for those. So as a
Okay.
platform engineer means that we have to give the platform for the people to work. So for that, we, as a DevOps and a platform engineer, our task was to create the resources for the production environment using the Terraform, and we used Visual Studio Code for that.
What? So what tools you know in DevOps actually from end to end?
So for if the platform is supposed to be given, so AWS, I know, I mean, I will rate myself as 3.5 out of 5, and in Azure I have exposure, but .NET not that much. In second comes the Terraform, and third comes the Jenkins, and fourth comes the intermediate knowledge of Docker and Kubernetes, and apart from that, the working knowledge of Linux. So that is
Okay,
the
you
DevOps
have.
part.
Okay. Yes, go ahead.
So that is the DevOps part. And other than that, I was involved in the installation and configuration of the monitoring tools. So back in KMG, they had introduced cloud for themselves also, and for their clients also. So I was deputation engineer. So I used to go to the client sites and work with the respective cloud team, because everybody was new to the cloud. So wherever I could contribute, I was supposed to do the installations and help those respective teams. I mean, that was a collective effort.
Okay, your role will be like doing the deployments also, right? The non-stage, non-prod stages, right?
Uh,
So
so,
if you will get
so by
an
deployment,
error,
so
if you
please go ahead.
yeah, if you will get 404 error, where you will check?
404 error.
Yes.
So there are two types of errors. One are the 500 series errors, and one are 400 series errors. One are the which are created from the servers, and one are the I mean the source side, the person who is requesting. And by error 404, we means the server not found. So for
Yeah.
if server is not found, then we will check the connectivity, for that the server is working or not, and if the connectivity is fine, all the ports are working fine, all the security group, the NACL, and all the proxies and firewalls are in place, then we will check the server connectivity, and if the server is failing centrally, so the request will, nobody will be able to access. So if nobody is able to access, then server is down, and if the particular group is not able to do, then we will check the network connectivity, or there might be some problem in our VMs or EC2 instances.
Okay. And then you worked on AWS, right? Can you brief about what services you have worked on, how?
In general, that were based on the project requirements. So let's say if I have to install the Docker, so I will create the EC2 instances for the testing purpose. So back in KMG, I was using in AWS. So let's say a developer has developed any application and he wants to test in the Docker. So he will not go directly to the production environment. First, he will test in the POC. So for that, I will give him the EC2 instance as a cloud engineer and install Docker, and he will continue with with his application. Other than that, we had a Java project, so that was supposed to be migrated to cloud. So I had used Elastic Beanstalk. So in Eclipse, we have a AWS Amazon plugin. So I had migrated the Java project using Elastic Beanstalk to the AWS. Other than that, if application has to be deployed in a tier manner, like tier 1 public facing subnet was supposed to be the buffer area, and the below that we have to keep the web servers, and below that we have to keep the database servers. So for that we will use 3-tier architecture. So based on the requirements, we will use the resources, and at the first place developer will have to discuss with the BA team, that is the business analyst team, and the BA guy will first of all make the target architecture, and according to that
Nice. How you will set up the VPC?
so
End-to-end?
there are two types of VPCs. So one are the default VPC, which is already created, and one is the custom VPC, which we can create according to our requirements. So first of all, we will create the VPC, and then we will create the route tables and the internet gateways and route tables and subnets. So there are four types of things. So we will have to create 4 things, and we will be able to do the VPC. So VPC is basically a logical network. Like we have on-prem network segregated with each other, logically segregated, and are accessible via layer 3 devices, be it firewall or router. So in the cloud, we can create our own VPC.
Okay. Do you know NAT gateways?
So NAT gateway is a gateway which connects the private subnet to the public facing internet. So the NAT gateway is the full form is network access translation. So NAT gateway is used for that purpose. So basically, if we want to hide our servers directly to the internet for the security purpose, for that we will use a NAT gateway.
Okay. And IAM?
Please pardon?
IAM.
IAM is Identity and Access Management Policy, so it's a cloud-based Active Directory. So it's altogether it's a very vast topic.
Okay. Like, have you worked on IAM? Like, have you updated any policies?
Policies, inline policies are the policies which are directly given to the users, that are very granular policies. So if you want to give the custom policies, but there are only two. One is let's say we want to give the access to the EC2. So one is the full EC2 access, and one is the read-only access, but that won't work. There are granular permissions are required to be given. So for that we use inline policy, which are directly attached to the resources. So these kind of policies I have given. And other than that, if we have to, I mean, create a group for different types of OUs and the groups. So one is the HR, one is the accounts department. So for that, we will create a group and add the users accordingly. And
Okay.
and if you want to give like in organization, what happens is, let's say you cannot give the root level access to anybody. So for that, and the accounts which the employees use are their personal. I mean, they are given separate accounts. So for that, we have to create a role to give the access to other people. I mean, the other accounts. So in the Azure migration program, the role had been created by the application team.
Okay. And S3.
S3 is the object level storage which can be accessed using the internet. So that is also a very vast topic altogether.
Okay. Okay. Then, what is the difference between an on-demand instance, reserved instance?
On-demand instances are the general instances which we create directly from the AWS console, and the other one was
Uh,
Spot.
spot
Spot instances are the, I mean, क्या बोलते हैं, auction based instances. So if you want to do any testing kind of thing, for that we can use the Spot instances, and they provide 90% of the cost reduction. But as soon as the
Then-
cost increases or attrition, so they may.
Repeat here. What is the difference between spot instance and on-demand instance?
I am telling you that only. Na?
Now, if it is spot instances,
I
what
am,
it will then? On-demand instance.
on-demand instances are the instances which we can create as per our demand at any time. And
At any time. Then what is the spot instance?
spot instances are the instances which are used for the experimental basis. For the basically they are very cheap. So and if the cost is up and down, and we are not paying according to that, so they can terminate also themselves. So spot instances are only created should only be created for the experimental and testing purpose. So in the AWS console we have option of the costing, so and we can do the spot request there.
Okay. And do you know about session manager?
Which
Systems manager. Systems manager.
system manager I had used in back in KMG, but right now I don't remember. So systems manager is the manager which manages certain resources kind of thing. Right now I am unable to recollect.
Okay. Okay. No issue. And you told about Docker. What do you mean by Docker?
Docker is a containerization management tool which is lightweight. So earlier we used VMs, so those use the dedicated OS. So the OS layer is subtracted, so the Docker is very lightweight, and on top of it, it is using the Linux kernel, so which is very light. So and also the Dockers are very flexible as compared to the VMs. So for that we used Docker. So to logically separate an application.
Logically separating application.
In containers.
Okay. And you know how to write the Docker files.
Yes.
Okay. Can you brief about what we will use in Docker file?
So in the Docker file, first of all, we have to create a make a directory, and we can then name the Docker file, and then using vi command we will go and enter, and first of all we will create the from. So the from refers to the image. So let's say if we want to use the one.
Sorry, from in the sense?
From in the sense the image we want to use. So let's say I want to use the Ubuntu image. So I will write the from, and that should be in the capital letters, and then I will write the Ubuntu, and other than that we will use the commands like if we want to copy from the local, so we will do the copy, and if we want to pull anything from the internet, so we will use the add command. So and one is the maintainer. So the maintainer is the person who is maintaining. So all those commands, and there's a and the you, after creation of the Docker file, we will save it and then run it. So using that, so in this way we create the Docker file. So Docker files are of two types. One is of the single staging and one is the multi-staging.
Hmm. Okay. And how to list the containers, running containers?
Docker ps, and if you want to list all the containers, so the docker ps-a is the command.
Running containers.
Docker ps.
Yeah. If you want to, okay. And do you have any idea about Docker Compose files?
So
How it
Docker
works?
compose file are the file if we want to wrap certain multi-tier application into a single file. For that we use Docker compose. So the format which is used in the is the YAML only. So any file, and after that you use .yaml context. And if you want, and after the creation of the Docker compose, then write one simple command, Docker compose up. So after that the Docker is up. And so there are various three types of version 1, version 2, version 3. So in the version 1 the I mean one layer is executed after the other, so so there is a dependency, so that dependency
Do you
was
have any idea about volumes?
please pardon.
Docker volumes. Volumes.
Docker volumes.
Yeah.
So if we want to save our data, for that we use the volume. So there are two types of volume. So one is the directory type of volume and one is the bind type of volume. So if you want to create the volume, so the docker volume create is the command, and docker run -v, and then we have to map the directories from where we have to save the data to that particular volume.
Then you told that you have knowledge on Kubernetes.
Working knowledge of Kubernetes I have, but end-to-end deployment I have not got the chance till now.
Okay. How to get the parts? Is a command.
kubectl get pods.
And do you have any idea about what is the stateful application, stateless application?
So the state it is specific to Kubernetes, or in generic terms you are asking?
In generic terms, you can
So in
say.
generic terms, stateful is something if the inbound traffic is allowed, outbound is automatically allowed, and in a stateless, if inbound is allowed, we have to specifically allow the outbound traffic as well for the security purpose.
And do you have knowledge on Nexus repositories, right?
Please pardon.
Nexus repository.
So Nexus
For
I have.
repository management.
So Nexus I had used only in BSSC project. For that project, I was working for only 1.5 to 2 months. So in the Nexus is basically where the repositories are stored. I have worked, but not in.
Please. And have you configured in Jenkins, master slave configuration?
So master slave configuration of Jenkins I have not configured, but I have the idea. So if we want to create the multi-tier architecture of Jenkins, and if the project is very heavy and complex, for that we can create the master slave architecture. So in the master we have to install that Jenkins, and we have to create a token and apply those in all the codes and the tokens in the slave branches, and then multiple nodes are created after that. So that is known as the master node architecture.
Okay. You worked on Linux environment, right?
In Linux, basically working knowledge, not the administrative knowledge.
Oh, no, what are the commands you can just daily usage command?
All the general commands. So let's say if I want to install anything, so I will use the wget command and the curl command. And if I want to check that whether that has been come up in my Linux VM, so for that I will use ls-ltr command. and for
Do you know the permission structure?
so the permission structure is that we have like read on it is file is divided into three parts. One is owner, one is group, and one is others. So I mean, read, write, and execute is the command. And for read we use number 4, write for number 2, execute 1, and no permissions 0. So if we want to give the 777 permission, so all the owner group others have the read write permissions. So 4 plus 2 plus 1, so it goes to 7. So everyone has the permission. So according to that, we assign permissions to file to owners, groups, and others.
Okay. Okay. And then do you have any idea about branching strategies in Git?
Branching
What is
is
meant with
something. So
that?
if you want to work in parallel, so for that we use branching, because in the master only a single person will be able to work. For that we create the branches in Git.
Okay. And do you know Git also, right?
Git, I was working master branch in the Azure, but branches also I have.
Okay. Do you have the Git commands like what is meant get rebase?
Git rebase is the
What is
command
it?
which is used to clear the Git conflicts. The command is git rebase hyphen continue, and other than that, the git rebase will merge all the branches with all of their history. So it is advisable not to use the git rebase command in the public repo.
Yeah.
Or the best solution is that if you are getting the merge conflict, first of all git always do the git pull and then push. That will work.
Okay. Okay. Speak. And then do you have any knowledge on scripting?
Scripting, I have basic knowledge only. I mean, I have not been touching the scripting part for the last 1 year, so will have to revise all that again.
Okay. If you get a chance to, Groovy, you have any idea about Groovy?
So Groovy is the language which is used for the Jenkins. So the syntax start with the we have to first write the pipeline, then bracket, then agent any, and after that we have to write the stages. And if we want to print any message, so for that we will use the echo command. And if we want to do the parallel pipeline, so we will add additional brackets. And for the sequential, we will write the code in the single block only. So I have not written any Google script as of now, but I have understanding. So because in back in KMG, I had the code, but I had to change that code. I mean, I did that code according to the requirement.
Okay, Ritik. I'm good. I'm good with this. Thank you. I'll let HR will get back.
Okay, thank you, sir. Have a nice day.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Yep.